I think there's probably some good things we can extract from your mind. You get to keep it, by the way. What you're saying is that you're having to get them to convince you that they are a good prospect.
Absolutely.
I love how you remember every date.
Dates and numbers stick in my head quickly.
Little Rain Man there.
Welcome to Building Your Sales Engine. I'm your host, Mark McGraw. In this episode, I sit down with a colleague of mine, Josh Pitchford. And if you don't know Josh is one of the top Sandler trainers across the globe. Absolutely one of the top performers, one of the best salespeople within the entire network of Sandler. And he has coached and trained thousands and thousands of salespeople. And one of his unique abilities really ties around the ability to prospect. And his mindset about prospecting is, to me, just gold. So in this episode, take a listen for how he thinks, how he looks at prospecting, some of the techniques that he uses. I think you'll get a lot out of it. It was a great conversation. I look forward to having Josh back even again soon. Let's dive in.
So, hey, today on the show, we have Mr. Josh Pitchford. Welcome to Building Your Sales Engine.
Yeah.
Glad to have you here, sir.
Hey, I like being here every day.
Yeah.
You know, that's one of the advantages of being with you every day is I get to build the sales engine every day, hopefully.
And you've done a great job. For those that don't know, Josh has been around our business at this time 9 years. In the top 1% of coaches and trainers globally. I mean, you just crush it, and it's taken time and work and all those things. Yeah. But you've really done a great job. And I thought, since this is the first time you've been on the show here with us, maybe we start a little bit with how did you find Sandler, and how did you tell us how did that start? How'd you come into this crazy thing?
It's one of my favorite stories to tell. Is that I was a client ahead of time, not at this office, right? I was with John Rosso in Charleston, who's a dear friend and colleague of us both, and then I was with John for a few months, and then the company I was with was based in Denver, and so then I got to work with Gary Harvey out there. And I always talk about it. I still have a screenshot, right? September 26, 2015. I was like, I got to get out of Denver. Denver's great and lovely. There's probably plenty of people listening that love Denver. Wasn't for me, right? I'm a Southeast boy and all those things. And so we were looking to get back down. And I actually found on that day, going through, how do I get back down to the Southeast? I found this Sandler training, Alpharetta, Georgia. And I asked Gary, who's this Mark McGraw guy? And he introduced us. And as you know, a couple of a few phone calls, a couple of FaceTimes, and a trip to Atlanta later. I started here January 4th, 2016. And
I love how you remember every date.
Yeah, that's the part of me about numbers that you know all too well.
Little Rain Man there.
So yeah, the 1989 classic Rain Man. I'm pretty good with numbers, which probably speaks to the prospecting piece a little bit as well. So dates and numbers stick in my head quickly.
Yeah. So you came here 9 years ago. We've been good friends, working together closely ever since. It's a great ride. I'm not saying it's been a great ride. I'm not ever using past tense for anything ever again. It is a great ride.
Yeah.
And I remember when we first, you're bringing up the interview, and I remember in the interview, one of the questions that I asked you was around prospecting, and I remember you saying something that stuck with me, and it said you loved prospecting. You love prospecting. And what immediately went through my mind was, well, if he's lying, this is, I mean, I by the way, I'd heard great things about you, and Gary Harvey had said wonderful things, and Charlene and all kinds of good people. But I mean, so I kind of laughed inside. That's what people say in an interview.
Yeah.
I love prospecting. And turns out 9 years later, I look back and I'm like, you do love prospecting.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought one of the things that could be meaningful to everybody together today is to talk a little bit about something I see in you that is really unique and fantastic. And since we share a wall, I hear you on the phone with people all the time.
Yeah.
And your mindset around prospecting is as good as anything I've ever seen. And I think there's probably some some good things we can extract from your mind. You get to keep it, by the way, but we're going to extract some things from your mind of the mindset of good prospecting.
Yeah.
So let's start there, Josh. 50,000 feet. Tell us a little bit about, tell me a little bit about your mindset. When you get on the call with somebody, what's going through your head? What are you thinking about? Those types of things. What goes through your mind?
I think where it's a little contrarian to what's normal is I am truly seeking to understand them. It's hey, are you open to this conversation right now or not? And that's okay. I'm never trying to force it one direction. I have a saying, I use it often in training, is I'm not in the business of trying to convince anybody of anything. If you're in a prospecting call and you're trying to convince somebody of something, you're fighting an uphill battle.
Yeah.
Go find a different prospect. I always look at it as no for now. Another example I always use is it's a sorting mechanism. You came up with Gumball prospecting, right? Is this a green gumball that's not quite ripe and ready? Is it red gumball that, it's just not ready to go? Or is it a gold one? Hey, this is a prospect, whatever it happens to be. And that sorting mechanism, and you're thinking about, okay, where do I prioritize them? And another image I always have in my mind is, do they, if you're in line at Disney World, right? And I spend too much time there and money there with my kids. But I'm always thinking about, where do they get to go in line? Do they get to go to the front of the line on a fast pass, or do they need to be in the back of the line?
You're qualifying them for where they are. And I like the idea of being at Disney World and then the line. Are you going to bring them to the front of the queue? Are they acting like they belong at the front of the queue, or are they acting like they need to be in the back of the line?
Right. And it's more prioritization versus qualification at that point.
Yeah.
Qualification is a word we use, pain, budget, and decision inside of Sandler, mindsets, all those things. Sometimes they get in the back of the line, they just stay there just because that's their mindset, and that's okay, right? But prioritization is that putting them in the line where should they be? And truly being inquisitive about that versus trying to sell anything. We're not going to sell anything over the phone. It's just, hey, where's their mindset out about this?
Well, let's even go upstream a little bit of where you started with that, and that's the qualification piece. And you mentioned the Gumball prospecting, so I'll take a minute and describe that if that's okay. But the idea behind that Gumball prospecting came from the fact that I used to go to a store when I was a little kid, and I'd go get a gumball from this big gumball machine, and I always wanted a particular color gumball. I always wanted the orange gumball. But the thing is when you put the coin in and you turn the coin, you never really know what color you're going to get.
Nope.
And you have to live with whatever comes out. And to me, and this is, you and I have talked about this, is that when you think about prospecting, one of the things I hear in you is you very much adopted this idea that whatever comes out from the prospect is going to come out. And you can influence a little bit, but you're not going to change an orange gumball into a red gumball.
No, not at all.
So the idea is that when you get on the phone with somebody, you're going to qualify them to figure out sort of what shade they are and what color and what position they are, rather than try to change them. I think that's a thing that people try to do a lot of times, is they're trying to influence and they're trying to change someone.
Right.
Any thoughts or anything you'd want to add?
It's way too much pressure. It's way too much pressure on themselves that they're trying to change somebody into something. And that's probably what, why a lot of prospecting doesn't happen, is the fear and the nervousness that they feel like they have to change somebody.
Yeah.
And all you're doing is inquiring to see, well, what color gumball are they? You're absolutely right? There's some things you can do to influence it, ask the right questions, pique their interest. What I've found though, and maybe this doesn't fit with everyone, is that sometimes when I'm having to pique their interest, it's something that plants a seed in their head. And it's funny that over my years, I've made, a few dials that I've asked a couple questions and it just didn't fit. And within 24 to 48 hours, I get a call back. Hey, you called me a couple days ago. And it got me thinking, maybe we should have a conversation. Well, it's interesting. What got you changing it? What got you thinking about that more? And I don't just jump right on it, and get all excited, and just always being, to use Sandler vernacular, being left of the pendulum. The math says in prospecting, it's probably not going to be a fit.
Yeah.
That's just prospecting, because it's your chances of finding that gumball color you're looking for.
Yeah.
Probably the math says, they call it prospecting. Not every rock you're going to kick over has gold underneath it. So staying left of the pendulum, more negative, and just really getting the prospect to prove to you that it's worth chasing down, it is a mindset to have that takes a lot of the pressure off.
And I think you're saying something that's really important there, and that is that when you start the call, I think a lot of people might start the call as this person's qualified, or the dial is set to yes. Your dial is set to no.
Absolutely.
This is, and almost here in what you're saying is that you're having to get them to convince you that they are a good prospect. Is that the case?
Absolutely. That is absolutely where we want to be. Talk about taking all the pressure off. They're selling me at that point. I'm just seeing where they are. Because otherwise, if your dial is set to yes, you think that that's where it's supposed to be. And if you get a no, which the math says you're probably going to get a lot of the times, it hurts you, right? And using Sandler vernacular, it can ding your I side, your identity side, and your confidence goes down, and all those things. Set your dial to no, and let them sell you on why you want to take another minute of your precious time to chase this down.
And I love that too. I mean, that's what you're basically saying is, hey, my time is important. You better be convincing me quickly. Now, it doesn't sound that way. You don't say it that way, but it's a little bit of that mindset that you have when you prospect. And I hear it in your voice, and I hear it when you prospect, and it's fun to listen to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it has a different. It's not cocky. It's not overly confident, but it's very relaxed. I don't know if you hear that. I feel like it is that I'm never pushing. It's like, hey, well, who are you guys using for sales training? That's one of my very favorite, because I already assume they're in a good spot.
Yeah.
They then have to convince me that it makes sense for us to talk about, the services that we provide.
That's a good example of it's set to know. You probably already have somebody that you're using for sales training. You're thrilled with them. You love them. They're doing a great job. Mm-hmm. Maybe phrases like that. Again, at the right time with the right tonality and all of those things start to get people to open up more.
Absolutely.
And get them to talk with you more.
Absolutely. They, it allows you to get to know, mm-hmm. right? Yeah, we are in a good spot. We wouldn't consider that doesn't really fit our business. Hey, that's fine. So you guys, revenue production isn't really something you're worried about, or protecting margins. One that really piques interest in our world is it's funny that we're sales training. We're meant to drive top line, and I love saying, hey, some people we talk to have no interest in driving more business. I was talking to someone this week. They have no interest in doing more business. They want to sell more of the right business, higher margins to the right kind of prospects, all the stuff that we really train, teach, and coach. And it really piques people's interest. And we don't even talk about growing revenue. It's about growing the right kind of revenue, which is something we specialize in as well. And it's kind of a little pattern interrupt, if you will, there.
Yeah, nice. And so you're getting engagement with that. You're bringing them in. You're asking them questions. I think that's another thing that at least I hear in you, and that is that everything pretty much ends in a question. It's like you're turning the microphone back over to them at all times. And your airtime, you're not using a lot of airtime on calls. You're getting them to speak and getting them to chime in. Any on that side of things, I know this is really a discussion around mindset. We'll come back to that. Any quick techniques that you have for people around what works for you on a prospecting approach call?
I mean, you nailed the technique. Everything you say should end in a question mark. It allows you to be in control, but they feel like they're in control because they're talking. But it allows you to see if they have the answers that they're supposed to have. That sorting mechanism. You're going to show yourself as a prospect or a suspect. And that questioning allows you to really, truly be engaged and listening. I mean, we have the pain funnel inside of Sandler. That's a great question set, but it's also something that allows you to be in a spot that you have to listen to them, right? You can't just ask a question, ask another question. That's where scripting gets us in trouble. We want to have talk tracks, but really it's being actively engaged and thinking about, these little, the branches of a tree. Are we going to go this way or are we going to go this way? And not really being, I'm totally unattached to the outcome. I just want to know where the branch is going to take me. And I'm always thinking about, oh, is it this or that? And I'm always staying there that it's probably not going to work. And the right prospects will kind of, they'll start selling themselves and selling you, that they'll start playing their lines. And it's something that we need to have there. But you can't do it tactically without questioning. If you find yourself pitching and talking about your services on a cold call, you're way out of line.
Yeah.
At that point, people don't care yet. So they don't care about you.
Yeah.
Or your services.
And by the way, it's something, it's a mistake. You're bringing up something I've seen a mistake that people make, and that is that they try to close for an appointment way too early.
Oh, yeah.
And they're asking for, I wanted to get a meeting with you without a reason to have the meeting. And so if there's anything you'd say about finding what we call pain prior to closing for an appointment, but that's another piece right there is anything you'd say about that?
It's funny. We do our prospecting sprint series, and it's maybe a little Sandler blasphemous, but the Sandler rule is when prospecting, go for the appointment. Mm-hmm. And I think, to your point, some people take that a little too literally. At first, you got to, when prospecting, the data shows you got to ask for interest.
Yeah,
they got to have enough pain before you try to start getting there. Just because that they fit the your quote unquote ideal client profile and however you filtered of why you're reaching out doesn't mean that this is a priority for them right now. Doesn't mean their mindset's in the right place. There's no, database in the world that has the mindset of the person that you're talking to. And so, absolutely. They go for the appointment way too early. Make sure there's interest there. Make sure there's reason enough. Make sure it's reason enough to make it a priority on their side before you go for that appointment.
It's always crossed my mind that, most people are not closing for a sale at the end of an initial call. It's not the case. What you are closing for, even on a cold call or a cool call, you're closing for time from the other person. That's the sale that you're making.
Sure.
Is an appointment in the book where they're going to take 20 minutes to an hour, whatever it is. And there has to be a certain amount of pain or gain that person sees in the conversation that they're going to have to want to go through to set up a meeting to talk with maybe a stranger or somebody that they don't know so well. So there has to be enough pain or gain there for them to want to go through the agony, at least in their mind, of being in on a sales call. And so that's what you're doing with that right there by finding out what issues they're up against before you try to close for appointments.
Way you term that is big, the agony.
Yeah.
And it's because, and I say
that's the way, but it is.
Well, yeah, because we're fighting an uphill battle because of the sales, the sales experiences they've had before. It goes all the way back to day one Sandler stuff, right? The buyers and the sellers, the buyer-seller dance, right? How buyers and sellers traditionally behave. The traditional selling model has exposed buyers to this, they got to listen to this pitch and try to be convinced, and people twisting their arms. If we're always staying left of the pendulum and just assuming we're backing up, and then they're giving all their reasons that they want to go through what hopefully with a Sandler trained salesperson is not going to be agony. It's going to be a collaborative conversation. And I think you've heard me do my thing before where we got to take this sales thing from transactional, which not closing on the first call, to consultative, which is great. But when we're truly collaboratively selling, which is, I think, up here where it's the same side, we're working on this thing together versus this us versus them mentality. And even it starts with the prospecting call. It's collaborative. Hey, I'm not trying to force anything on anybody. It's, hey, does this make sense for you to talk about right now? Because I'm just wondering whether I should prioritize it in my world. That's really what it comes down to.
That gets to what you brought up earlier, and that is, okay, if you do have someone that's somewhat qualified, and the other thing that I heard in there is that you're starting with them as a suspect, not as a prospect.
Absolutely.
They have to convince you that they're a prospect. And so what you're doing now is, if you move from qualification, you move to prioritization. Like, how important is this to you to want to go fix? And where in the line, back to the Disney metaphor that you used, Where in the line does that exist?
Where do you get put? And you're just always assuming that they should be in the back of the line.
Yeah.
They got to earn their way to the front. It's like the old bar bouncer, like the velvet ropes, right? You get to be the bouncer, whether you get in or not, and that's really the mindset you have to have. And it's not meant to come over as overly confident or cocky or anything like that. But I want everyone to understand the value of their time.
Yeah.
And there's an opportunity cost with every single time you take an appointment with somebody that's not of the right qualification or right mindset. There's an opportunity cost for somebody out there that you should be helping. And that's where we have to be. So,
and one of the other cool things that it seems to me about this is that if you do go into a call and you have an attitude of you can't lose anything, I mean, you got nothing to lose. It's all upside in terms of, you can't lose anything you never had is a Sandler rule. And that's really applicable on the prospecting side of things because, the only thing that you're committing to is a few minutes of time to make a call and maybe your ego if it doesn't go as well.
Right.
But all you're really doing is committing that. And so the upside is something good comes out of it. The downside is you don't lose anything at all. So I don't know if it
can only get better.
It can only get better.
It can only get better. If you set your dial to no, it can only get better. If you set your dial to yes, by and large, it's not going to go your way.
Yeah.
The math just states it. And so, you tell that great story about what you saw back in the day with George Clooney.
George Clooney story.
Yeah, the George Clooney story. You should tell that. And it can only get better. It's so in alignment with, you can't lose anything you don't have. So I would certainly ask you to tell everyone that story.
I'll share it with everybody quick. I'm watching TV and it was inside the actor's studio. And George Clooney's being interviewed, and he was talking about when he had no real, a presence as an actor. He was waiting tables, and he's going out for auditions, and he wasn't getting callbacks at all. And he came to a realization, and this was in this interview, where he said, really, every time I go on an audition, I'm playing with house money. The best thing that happens is I get the role. The worst thing that happens is I don't get a role that I didn't already have. And so he said, every time I went on an audition and I thought to myself, I'm playing with house money. Only good can come out of this circumstance. It's the same in prospecting.
Mm-hmm.
You can't lose anything because you've got nothing invested in it other than a few minutes of time. And the only thing that can happen, if you could imagine going to Las Vegas and you sit down at the slot machines and you have one of those credit card things that they use today because they're not using coins, but that credit card thing is actually limitless in terms of the number of times you can pull the slot machine. You'd stay there all freaking day.
I know.
And just to agree, that's kind of what prospecting is, whether it's email prospecting or whether it's a phone call. And by the way, I think there's that I'd want to make sure that when we think about this conversation could be following up on an inbound lead.
Mm-hmm.
It's the same conversation pretty much.
Scalar.
Few little differences. It could be following up on a referral. It could be following up on a trade show lead that came in at some point. So this doesn't always have to apply. I think when people hear prospecting, they immediately associate that with cold calls and that they're like one and the same. It's not, I don't see it that way.
No, they're so far different. I love the tool, that we use, the 7-step no pressure call, right?
Yeah.
Is that because you can change that tactically into all those scenarios you just had. And, I've done some stuff with clients just using that framework to use those techniques to get it to an outcome. That's what people have to remember. The whole point of the call is to get it to an outcome. The problem is the mindset wise for most salespeople is they're trying to get to a positive outcome. And that's a toughie.
And it's what we want.
Of course.
But it's just not always, but it's interesting. It's what we want, but the best way to get there is actually start with a no, go for the no is a Sandler principle.
Sure.
But, and by the way, that is N-O, not K-N-O-W. I had that wrong for the first year of my Sandler business. I thought, go for the no, which also makes sense too, because you're going for the no in terms of getting the truth from the prospect. You're trying to understand like what the real reality is in their mind. You're qualifying them.
Sure.
But that's another principle for sure that falls into here.
Yeah, it's not even go for no. It's like be it no and have them talk you into yes.
Yeah.
Instead of you talking them into yes, they should be talking you into yes.
Yeah. What a great approach. What a great mindset. So if you think about, like I guess we've talked about the mindset, like starting with a no, we're going to qualify, we're going to prioritize.
Sure.
Anything else that jumps out at you when you think through what goes through the mind of Josh Pitchford when you're prospecting?
So it may sound cliche, but I think it's something that I hear time and time again on coaching calls is the bad mindset around cold prospecting.
Mm-hmm.
Is that they think they're getting in the way. I mean, I had somebody call it an ambush call the other day, and I literally had them, raise your right hand and repeat after me. We'll never call that an ambush call, because if you call it an ambush call, that's what you feel like you're doing to somebody.
Yeah.
Where you have to reset your mindset that all I'm doing is giving them a call to see if they're open to a conversation around how we might be able to help them. I'm not sure we can, but all I'm doing is checking. If you have belief and conviction in your products or services, you owe them a call to see if this is something you can serve them with. If not right now, that's fine. You're just assuming that's where it's going to be.
Yeah.
But we owe them a call. If we have belief and conviction in what we do, we owe them a call to see if we can help them.
I've heard people say if you have the cure for sales cancer, you'd want to pick up the phone and let people know about the medicine that you have, and you insert whatever product that you have. Absolutely. If you believe in what you're doing, you owe it to those people to give a call.
Absolutely. It's going to give you more conviction to pick it up. And that's the hardest thing, right? Be gutsy 5 seconds at a time. Half of that is just dialing on your phone the 10 digits, if that's what you need to do. So
I had mindset wise, I had a client tell me this one time, and I just thought it was a funny way to look at it. He had maybe 300 or 400 accounts in his territory, but he had some key accounts here and there. And when he called people, he would say to them, I just want to let you know, introduce myself. I'm your account manager. He didn't have any business from them. I mean, they weren't a client, they weren't a customer, but they were in his territory. And so the way that he approached it is they're in my territory, they're my account, I'm your account manager. I just don't have any business from you yet. But it changed the scope of the conversation just by calling it, by saying I'm your account manager, which sort of implies you're already doing business with them.
Sure.
But it opened up conversations, and it made it easier for him to make the call, and it made it easier on the prospect as well.
It made him feel like he was calling somebody more familiar. Yeah. And if you got to play mind games with yourself to do it, absolutely fine, because that probably put him more as a servant's mindset than a selling mindset. Go in there seeking to understand where they are, seek to serve them. The selling part will take care of itself if you do that.
Yeah. Intentions make such a big difference, don't they?
Intentions is where it all is. If your intention is to understand them, serve them, right? You have belief and conviction that you owe them a call. Those are your intentions. You'll be just fine.
Yeah, if your intentions are, I'm going to sell this person, or I'm going to convince them, or I'm going to change the color of the gumball, whatever it might be, it can work. It's just not as effective. And I love the way you say it with a servant's mindset. You're there to understand, you're there to seek truth, you're there to help, and that approach just goes such a long way. And it's why you're so successful at doing what you're doing. It's why you built such a great business, and it's one of the many reasons, in fact. So
appreciate it.
Hey, great stuff. Great stuff.
Always good fun to talk about this. I'm sure we'll have more topics to talk about like this, but this was a good one to start with.
Yeah.
Great stuff.
And yeah, thanks so much for being on the show here.
Appreciate it.
And we'll see you again. We'll bring you back for sure. You're right across the hall.
That sounds good. Nice and easy commute.
So, hey, I hope you've gotten a ton of value out of this episode. By far, it's our purpose to help people make money and have fun and have a good time. We're here to help improve your life, to help you make it easier to go sell or to manage your sales team, and ultimately to go build your own sales engine. Don't miss an episode. Best way to go do that is to make sure that you jump out to buildingyoursalesengine.com/follow, where you can link up to all of our latest episodes. For more information about this episode, go to buildingyoursalesengine.com, where you can download show notes, transcripts, and other information, including handouts, snapshots of this and other episodes. If you'd like to connect with us to talk about how we can help you build your sales engine, and you are either located in the state of Georgia or are referred to us by one of our clients or affiliated by one of our clients, please reach out to us at buildingyoursalesengine.com, where you can click there to book some time with us. We can find out how we can be of help with one another. If you're not in either of those two circumstances, please reach out to Sandler.com, where you can find a Sandler office near you. Be well.